You are listening to the Push Media Podcast Network.
This is good shit.
Jizzy gon' get off. And apparently it's very difficult to make Jizzy get off. Jizzy's into some weird shit, allegedly. Jizzy's into the type of stuff that, like, requires people to dress like Merlin and worship the sun. And scour Central Florida for young girls who come from troubled homes who, if they go missing, probably nobody's gonna ask. And Jizzy gon' get off because today it was announced that Ghislaine Maxwell, also known by her real name Jizzy, which was a joke that rocked the nation, is not even going to have to testify at her own trial. She's not even going to have to, answer any type of questions. We know all we want to know about this story. Obviously, right? No one has any other questions. No one has any follow-ups for Jizzy. No one would like an additional an explanation, a clarification of the finer details around this wildly boring story about the math teacher from Queens who killed himself with non-kill-yourself bedsheets after having an island where he fucked children. And the prosecutors who have already earlier said, like, guys, we suck, but more importantly, we suck. We all have things we want to do. Like we said, we all know what happened here. None of us have any further questions. So, Your Honor, Your honorable dumb fuck, we want to end this trial early, and we're not even going to call Ghislaine to testify. I know we're supposed to be prosecuting the person who a lot of people who have evidently been proven stupid thought was the actual brains of the operation. The daughter of one of the most famous Israeli spies of all time who died on a fishing boat. Anytime anyone who ever worked for the government died in a fishing or boating-related accident, that's a sign of it being simply coincidental and a shame. And who knows? This might all be for the best. I'm an adult. I'm a grown-up. I understand sometime what sucks is what's best. I get maybe we should have this swept under the rug, because if we truly knew all of the details about it, 45% of us would jump off a bridge, perhaps. Who knows? I think that's legitimately a pretty accurate number, if I'm being honest. And I'm not even a gambling man. I'm a lover. I'm a sinner. I'm a midnight winner, but I'm not a gambling man. That's not me. But that 45% is probably true, because I don't know if you remember where you were when you found out the Chris Tucker of Rush Hour fame was attached to Epstein's Island, but I do. I remember the day the earth stood still. That was the day I found out Jackie Chan's partner in the LAPD potentially was buddying around with old Jeffy Fuckface, president of Kid Fuck Mathematics Island. It sucked. So maybe this is for the best. Maybe if we truly knew the extent of just how far-reaching and long-standing this network is, it would be bad news. Maybe there is an element of tolerated evil that goes for the best. Maybe if you think that's not true and you get even remotely accurately close to what's going on, you disappear. Maybe something weird happens to you or your family. Maybe you, I don't know, just don't buy a self-driving car if you're one of those people would be my best advice to you. I don't know if Seth Rich was driving a Tesla, but it wouldn't surprise me, because can we talk about that for a minute? I have really shifted my views on Elon Musk way before his fucking haircut. He looks like a cartoon bad guy, and I want to say Courage the Cowardly Dog, but I'm not sure on that. And if any of you know, he had like a black t-shirt on, and he had like orange hair that just was a rectangle on his head. Maybe it was an Ed, and Eddie or something like that. Point is, Elon Musk, he comes from a family that owns slaves. So let's cut to the chase. Haircut aside, he is a slave trader, a tax evader, and a Martian for all intents and purposes. If you needed additional proof, if you thought I was the crazy one for thinking, hey, maybe Elon Musk is an alien, maybe the evidence that, I don't know, his stupid face should be convincing enough. Well, if that was me sounding a little out there for you, I invite you to look at his hair now and tell me I was wrong. That wasn't, at the very least, foreshadowing out of me? I think not. I think not, folks. And he moved to Texas, which I'm uncomfortable with just how much Texas has surged in popularity over the last decade, right? Because I know I can only speak for me, even though that hasn't stopped me before, but in terms of just personal experience, Texas, to me, represented an idea. Texas was a place that, even though I knew was real, felt like it stopped existing after there was no longer saloons with double doors that opened in the middle. You know, it just felt like an old-timey thing. Because if you're not from Texas, if you're from the Northeast, it was only ever really associated with Western movies. And Western movies, if you're at least roughly my age, were pretty much things you associated with old people. Your grandfather, your uncle, your creepy uncle who fought in a war, who just didn't like rap music in the house for some reason. You know, the whole idea or mythos of the cowboy in the wild, wild west was all personified in Texas. It didn't, obviously there's Oklahoma and a bunch of other states that have aliens or no one in them at all. But for the most part, Texas represented this idea of the Western cowboy hero, which to me was a thing that was not really relevant anymore. And then that all changed when Beto O'Rourke wrote a poem about murdering a cow and then eating it or something. Somehow that shot it back to, well, I guess you could give Ted Cruz some benefit of the doubt in doing something. But he doesn't do anything besides piss people off. And he ran for president a few times, but who gives a good goddamn? I think Beto was the first guy that really got people so far outside of Texas, people who might have shared, if you were kind of my age, an idea or a similar view that Texas really was just an idea. It wasn't that tangible. It kind of was like it was like Timbuktu. It might have been real. You know, Kalamazoo, right next to San Antonio. But then that all changed with Beto writing a poem. And then everyone got very involved on a national scale with Texas when Beto was running against Ted, I think. Beto, of course, lost because, again, he wrote a poem about murdering and eating a live cow or something. And then Ted Cruz grew a beard and just apparently his father killed Kennedy. And then Texas just lingers on the national mind's culture, like in the zeitgeist, until coronavirus strikes and it gets really, really bad. And people die, and people lie, and people steal, and people lie, cheat, and steal, and Eddie Guerrero, R.I.P. But then a lot of people in California who were already on the edge or who have been pushed to the edge because the far left, let's just say it, and I know I hate to sound like this guy, but it's just fucking true, folks. Sorry. The left got really weird and far left. And that was mostly happening in places like Berkeley, San Francisco, where they were shitting on the streets and defunding police departments and then eating the shit that they had previously left on the streets because they didn't have money for food. But then the rich people in that state, your Joe Rogans, your Elon Musks, and then all of your disciples of Joe Rogan's short-dicked, mythos, they all follow him to Texas. Elon Musk goes to Texas. And they kind of make it like this new Los Angeles, but this time it's occupied by like millionaires, billionaires, influencers, people who affect culture, and, in the case of Elon, at least, technology and government subsequently. They all make it this like Los Angeles with a libertarian bent, kinda. And I'm not shitting on libertarians at all. I think they have a lot of great ideas. I think a lot of them are scared to talk to girls, and I think a lot of them need to move outside of the Dakotas. But there is something to be said for placing the utmost emphasis on individuality and freedom. But let's not have privately owned fire departments, because slippery slopes are slippery, motherfucker. So I get it. There's a point. But a lot of you are just kind of weird and wear flannel in a non-ironic way. So then Texas continues to ride this cascade of momentum into the national spotlight. And this is just my estimation here as to what happened. But then Texas gets really big in their britches because for the longest time, they had this larger-than-life persona. Everything was big, including the toast. But it was it felt like we all knew its best days were behind it, you know? It was like a Six Flags. It was like a theme park where, yeah, they're fun still, but we all know these have maybe, a decade left. Unless you're building a roller coaster inside of a mall, fuck you. What, are we going to stand outside in a line? We're only going to do that unless you also are a multimedia empire that was founded by an anti-Semitic guy and started a Scientology cult in Orlando, Florida. So we have a very strict guideline for how we'll tolerate theme parks. Back to the bigger point at hand, Texas. So Texas, now, all of a sudden, they're getting big in their britches in ways that make them feel like they are actually important. And here's the thing about Texas. I'm sure there's a few intelligent people. I'm sure there are. But if we're just taking a historical view, what's Texas known for? Fighting, telling people, this is my land, this is my yard, legally letting people kill those people who were not listening to the people describing where their yard started. They were known for shooting people. They were known for quick trigger reactions. They weren't diplomatic. This wasn't where poets went to hang out. This wasn't Cambridge, Massachusetts. This wasn't even the Dakotas where they were having, civil discourse in an auditorium talking about the limiting government role. But Texas, what I'm getting at here is there are not a lot of rocket scientists based out of Texas. They're people in Texas think it's socially acceptable and fine and normal and just something that's okay to wear a cowboy hat still. In 2021, damn near 2022, people think it's fine to wear a cowboy hat. And I've seen them. You might not travel, but if you've ever seen someone in a cowboy hat, a legitimate cowboy hat, too. Not one of those June and July cowboy hats that white girls named Stephanie wear when they go to Camden to see Colton Hayes or someone who's, closetedly strumming a guitar in New Jersey. But a real cowboy hat, those people are stupid. Sorry, it's just true. And then I hear already preemptively the people saying, well, hey, what about Austin? We're not those people. We're a bastion of liberalism and open-mindedness that's currently under siege as we cannibalize and shoot ourselves into oblivion. You rootin' tootin' cowboy idiots. But those are the same people that were getting a little big in their britches and decided to start trying to solve some of the world's woes, some of the larger gray area issues, some of the complex problems that continue and have been for decades a problem within our own country. These are the people that decided, because Texas is known for having a government that takes action. If they have an idea, and it ain't a bad one, or everybody gonna agree, we're gonna get to the courthouse, we're gonna pass it, we're gonna sign it, we're gonna shoot a celebratory bullet hole through the bottom, and then we're gonna incentivize people to rat out women who needed abortions and give them $10,000 to buy an acre of land. That might have been a gross summation of the controversial abortion law that was passed in Texas a while back. But the point is, these rootin' tootin', highfalutin cowboys, some of them lawyers because it's a society, someone has to do it. They're all still in Texas, though. And they passed the law, which cleverly, in a legal sense, navigated the Roe v. Wade decision allowing abortion and crafted a law which constitutionally, which is a very important point, did not break a law which limited abortion after 6 weeks. It incentivized and granted the right to private citizens to rat out anybody, including the woman, or who aided and abetted the woman, including Uber drivers, medical professionals, someone who sold that woman a sandwich on the way, into turning into the police. And that person would receive, if they were correct in their accusation, if they were correct in their SS finger pointing, 10,000 gold coins, and then they could stop robbing stagecoaches. You 10-gallon morons. And regardless about how you feel about abortion, it is probably the single most hot-button issue in America, I would say, right? It's the most divisive issue, I think, when you bring it up. It's often, I think, the most misunderstood issue when you bring it up. Because there's a lot of points that go outside of what you hear. Because usually abortion is framed because everyone's stupider than you expect, sadly. Issues are reduced into sides because that's how it's easily digestible by the masses. And the masses, not even their fault to some extent, are purposefully in a lot of different ways made dumber over time. So we reduce abortion in this case to this is a matter of the evil, scary, dark cloud, trigger, thunder, and lightning government overreaching and taking control of a woman's body against her will. And that is a valid argument. It is an argument that has also gained in strength as the rise in feminism has grew. And feminism, not even a bad ideology. Of course, everyone's created equal. There's some criticisms of modern feminism today, I think, that are fair, perhaps. I also think there's an argument to be made that feminism, like a lot of other social movements, has been usurped by corporate interests and manipulated in a way where it is then carried out unbeknownst to them by normal people on Twitter in the real world and not even aware of the fact that the ideology that they're promoting, like feminism, in a lot of ways, as it stands right now in the form that it is hurting women. Maybe that's what's going on, but there's an argument to be made about it. And then, of course, the other side of the dumbed-down argument is people believing that abortion is murdering or preventing a human baby, a life, is intervening in a process that, if left untouched, would result in a person. Now, both sides are made to sound crazy. Whatever side you're on makes the other side sound clinically insane. That isn't the case. It's always both. One side believing that the government is evil and out to take yet another right from them, which they'll never get back because, let's face it, it's the government, and the buck stops here. You can't do that. If we give in a little, we give in all the way. And then the other side is saying, hey, you're murdering kids. Both think they're right. And what's funny is both sides, not only do they think they're right, both sides are right. And of course, there are some issues, abortion included, where there is an actual moral truth. But the really, really difficult ones, usually there's campaigns made to really make it difficult to discern what the actual correct truth is. But in the case of abortion today, both sides are right. Because 1,010%, if you give up any type of a right, if you give any inch of control over your life back to the government, you ain't getting that inch back. So that side's right. They're 100% right about that. I can understand and empathize with people telling the government to fuck off. It's my body, it's my life, it's my choice. I get it. I want the government involved in as little of my life as possible. Actually, that's me speaking in absolutes, which is unfair because just because I already brought up libertarians in Fargo, North Dakota earlier, they also want the government involved in everyone's life as little as possible, and I don't think those are the people that should be making the abortion call either. So maybe I don't want I want the government involved in my life very, very little. That is just a through line in my existence. So I get that point. I can also understand and empathize with the side that's saying, hey, you're murdering kids, folks. Hey, what the fuck? Why? What the hell, everybody? They're killing babies. Hello, guys, they're murdering kids. That might also be me speaking hyperbolically and really, headlining. But there's some validity in the argument that you're intervening in a process that, if left untouched, would result in a person who could be a president, a person who could go on to become an astronaut, a person who could go on to become someone else who works at NASA. It could be two people, one astronaut, one not, both working at NASA. How about that? It's possible, but we won't if you kill them. So I can get that side too. But as I have hopefully just proven, this is a very nuanced and complicated problem that ain't going anywhere. In fact, it's probably going to come to a head in the biggest of ways since Roe v. Wade. But this complicated and nuanced problem should not in any way, in my humble opinion, try to be solved by people that think it's okay to wear cowboy hats still. You rootin' tootin' idiot. So Texas, riding a wave of popularity, getting big in their britches, thinking their shit don't stink and their toast is the biggest toast that has ever been toast, decided, hey, we're great, everyone loves us, everyone's moving here, let's tackle some of the world's woes, problems, ills. We'll solve them, we're Texas. We have 10-gallon heads, so we must have a big-ass brain. Well, they got together and decided to pass an abortion law, which allowed, like we said, anyone who helped a woman receive an abortion after 6 weeks of pregnancy, which I'm no woman today, but I'm pretty sure most people don't even know they're pregnant by 6 weeks. So that's, crazy. And then it essentially created a system that wants vigilantes. But as crazy as that is, as weird as a law that is, as bad an idea as that is, and believe me, a lot of people think it's a bad idea. I'm not no Texas sympathizer, folks. I do not remember the Alamo. In fact, I forget it pretty much every year. It's a dumb idea. But it went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court decided, and you got to remember, the Supreme Court's job is not to decide whether or not it's a good law. The Supreme Court's job is to decide whether or not any component of the law, which currently stands in Texas, is unconstitutional. And they found, at least for now, it's not. Because, like we talked about earlier, Texas wrote the law in a very crafty and creative way to, for all intents and purposes, outlaw abortion, but it doesn't actually say it. Therefore, doesn't violate any precedent set from Roe v. Wade, but what in fact it does is set its own new precedent. And it's not a precedent just about abortion. It's not limited just to that. It's definitely not limited just to that, because brand new news, Gavin Newsom, not dead. He just needed to take a month off after getting a booster shot up full of credit card tracking devices in his Botox face. He came back with a law, and he's like, guys, not only am I not dead, I got an idea for a law. You know what happened in abortion, where we essentially allowed states the ability to circumnavigate a federal government on a scale like that? As long as we get creative in the ideas that we pass and they're not deemed unconstitutional, essentially, we just got to pay different, meaner, more evil lawyers. They'll write this shit, and then we'll skirt the government. So only this time, because it's California and everyone's a liberal shit-eating moron, they've decided guns are bad, and there's a case to be made for some of it, but I'm not going to make it because I don't agree. We're going to use the precedent set, and that's important to remember because laws in America are based on precedent, except in Louisiana, because who knows. Only this time it's going to apply to guns. So Gavin said, in his wisdom, guns, assault guns, which is a big emphasis they all make. Does anyone know what an assault rifle or an assault weapon is? What the fuck does that mean? What the genuine, actual flying fuck is the difference between a gun and an assault weapon? I know what the difference between a gun and an automatic weapon is. A handgun and an automatic weapon, a semi-automatic weapon, a rifle, a shotgun. But what the fuck is an assault weapon? I know I like to ask thought-provoking questions, and this might be the most thought-provoking question I've ever asked of all time. But I ask you, aren't all weapons designed for assault? Not to make you think too hard. Aren't all weapons assault weapons, and aren't, vice versa? What is this magic of words that has made people think they've somehow, because I think someone decided gun's not scary enough, we're not getting our point across. So instead of using gun, the thing that everyone's kind of comfortable with, probably because of Western movies and 10-gallon morons from, the Old West, we have to shake it up and come up with a new term. We have to make the culture think that they're not guns, they are assault weapons, because assault is a word that send shivers down people's spines. We all know what that means. We all know it's serious. We also know it to be vaguely bad in a legal way, which is probably how most people would describe genuinely that thought, in a very legally blondish view. But now Gavin is proposing that private citizens in California have the right to sue other private citizens who manufacture or sell guns. Not even guns that were used in crimes, guns that are illegally owned or possessed. None of that. Just making them, having them, selling them. You can rat them out and make $10,000, a la Texas abortion. I don't know whose terrible, actually, I don't know specifically whose terrible idea this was, but I know we can, we could trace this stunning and scary legal development to a moron in a cowboy hat has created this weird loophole, which I'm afraid set in course this whole precedent for states to completely cede from any type of federal oversight. And I can't believe I'm going to be the one arguing for federal oversight over anything. The federal government can have oversight over my balls only. If it was up to me, you can overlook my taint. But it's getting scary because every state, we all know this, is its own culture. Not every state, but, groupings of states have their own culture. They're liberal in one place, conservative in another, But this precedent of drafting these laws which creatively skirt precedent previously, and it turns out in the form of promoting vigilantism, which, doesn't that sound familiar if we were to look through history? Like a lot of bad shit followed once governments started encouraging citizens to rat on their fellow citizens. I think we all know from a lot of movies, no one likes a rat. You shouldn't be a rat. You shouldn't be a teacher's pet. Keep your fucking mouth shut most of the time. I mean, speak recklessly. Call out hypocrisy. I get all that. You can be righteous or you can be Dave Chappelle or whatever. But no one likes a rat. No one likes anyone who just wants to get some. Shut your fucking pie hole. Okay? You dork. Zip it. But on a historical perspective, seems like every time governments were like, hey, citizens, rat out people like the Nazis came to power. Or something like Gulag started springing up in Cold War era Russia. It's never a good sign when the government's like, hey, not only are we going to be figures of authority, we're going to turn over some of that authority to you, the citizens. We think you guys are going to be discerning enough in your regular everyday life, where you still have jobs and careers doing other things, to also become law enforcement. What could go wrong? And then me, just being me, I don't ever think the story is fully the story, because I go, all right, who benefits from general vigilantism, recklessness, lawlessness, under the guise of more law and order, mind you? Well, it would be corporate interests, I guess, evil James Bond villains, which may or may not exist, who knows. So that's where I'm at with it. But you can't rat. That's not what it should be. And I get Texas is all about sharpshooting and the outlaws and sheriffs and whatnot, but most people aren't sheriffs. There's a reason we don't have a country full of exclusively police officers, because then they're not police officers. Do you understand what I'm saying? If everyone is the thing that stops people from doing bad things, there are no more bad things. There's just stuff that we do. Because who's to stop you from doing it, or even at that point say it's bad? And that's where I start to think, all right, who's going to benefit from that? What would be the consequences of this decision? Because I don't think a lot of people are processing decisions and making choices in an appropriate reaction time, because they can't. They're coming at them way too fast. And somehow, overnight, this abortion law in Texas got passed, which set a precedent for California to do the same exact thing. And if we let other states do this, all these states, let's just say Kentucky doesn't like gays, which I don't think I'm stepping out on much of a ledge. They'll pass some type of law which allows people to turn in people. They might actually pass a law that allows people to shoot people in their left ass cheek that bakes gay cakes for homo weddings. Their words, not me. Again, those are the words of the Kentucky legislators. Rand Paul said that in the barbershop. Point is, slippery slopes are slippy. Ha ha! Slippery slopes are slippery. And this could just lead to eventually the dilution of the United States, right? It could just turn all of our states into their own little countries. It would, well, it almost sounds like divide and conquer, doesn't it? I'm not really one of those doom and gloom guys. I try to be very upbeat. There's an element of positive nihilism here. Some would just say that's another way to say an optimist. But it sure does feel like the fall of Rome in a lot of ways because, and this one's good. This is a good plan. Generally, I'm all about fuck the government. This is my life. But it seems like they've bottled that sentiment, which is good, or at least one that I emotionally resonate with, and they've packaged it under a new law that will insidiously infect the legal system and slowly take power away from the Supreme Court and give it back to the states. And historically, a lot of times, a president or someone says, we're going to leave the issue up to the states, it's kind of a cop-out. And it's smart, and being allowed to do that with some things like tax codes and whatnot is what makes America such a great country and so successful. Is states being allowed to have different ways of doing things. But like all things, too much of a good thing becomes a bad thing. Just like if everyone in an entire country was a police officer, there's no more police, and then there's lawlessness. If everyone is allowed to do their own thing, all of a sudden, people would become very easily to trick into doing something they think is for their own good, but is actually for the benefit of something else, which happens all the fucking time. You need the Supreme Court. There needs to be somebody who says, I'm in charge. You need a final adult. And you, more importantly, need to agree to listen to whatever they say. You need to believe that they're being honest and objective, which hopefully they are. But you need to at least have them. This seems very, very creatively designed to divide and conquer. Vigilantism is a word that never really rings positive, because it implies you're taking matters into your own hands, which is kind of a good thing. You would think it's kind of built into the American psyche. It's you affect your world. You are in control. It's up to you. You could pull yourself up by your bootstraps and pay your taxes or something. Who knows? I don't know. Not or do get a booster. I don't care as long as you don't wear a cowboy hat. The larger point here is too much of a good thing is a bad thing. Too much freedom can result in you, because most people are not fully actualized, enlightened Dalai Lamas, not knowing what's best for you. There's a reason when you're born you have parents and you're not an animal in the ocean who just swims around immediately on their own, who may or may not get killed. When you're born as a baby, if you're not in Texas, you have parents, and your parents will tell you all throughout your childhood, and then into adult life maybe, what's right, what's wrong, show you how to do this, how to do that. But more importantly, instill in you a framework for judging shit. Not even like what's right, what's wrong, gray area stuff, but just don't kill people, don't go through red lights, things like that. And that's what I think our legal system, the Supreme Court, the federal government, the very tippy top of the motherfucking pyramid, all-seeing eye, what I think it represents in a lot of ways is like your parents, because there needs to be a thing that kind of guides you or shows and tells you what's best, because you're not inherently a god. So how would you know just instinctually the most fulfilling way to exist as a person? You wouldn't. That's crazy. Someone has to show you how to do and how to be and what's what, how to dress, how to eat, how to fuck. There's a difference. There's a difference in those things. Someone's got to show you. You're not going to know. You're not a genius. Most people aren't geniuses. Back to the if everyone's a genius, then there's, you know what I'm saying? So you need mom and dad. You need a Supreme Court. You can't allow everyone to think that whatever they think or feel is right. And that's what this legal precedent is doing. It's not just about abortion. It's not just about guns. It just happens to be about two of the most divisive and polar opposite, politically at least, issues currently. Isn't that a coincidence? Wake up, skies are sprayed. Think for yourself, obviously. Speak recklessly, of course. But also, defer to the experts and don't think everyone's lying to you. And shut your fucking mouth, loser. Those are tenets that I think also should occupy some space in your brain. I'm not here to tell you how to live, but I am going to tell you, and I do think I'm right. That's very important for me to point out. I might be wrong, but I'm not lying.